3 minutes past, we'll get started. Is anyone following along with the fish fillet today?
I am.
Okay, so what you want is you want an ice bath to put your fish on, but we'll get to that later because I feel like there's half the room is just doing vegetarian options. So we'll first break down the vegetables for garnish, and then when I'm demoing the fish, if it doesn't relate to you, you can just keep working your way there. So today we are steaming fish in a very unique way. Not everyone has a steaming setup, so we're going to use parchment paper, so make sure you have that. And the thing we're going to do is we're just going to break down our vegetables. We're going to use that to either put it below the fish or on top of the fish, depending on if you have anything, if you have like lemons available for the bottom. So get your vegetables. So I have here carrots, celery, and green pepper. You really only need 2, but I picked 3 just because, you know, it's an odd number of vegetables and it'll look nice on the fish. We're going to do my last kind of cooking or knife technique demo today, which is a julienne, and we've actually done that with green pepper. It's just that we fine dice the matchsticks after. But a julienne is basically a matchstick cut. So imagine like a matchstick, you know, 2 to 3 inches. The important thing is that you want to keep them uniform. So you just want your pepper. I'm gonna dice it the same way as we learned
Hey,
for the shakshuka.
do you mind turning down the music a little bit?
Yeah, of course. I didn't get a sound check today. Robert couldn't join us, so thank you. Is that better?
Yeah, that's great.
Okay. So we're just gonna do the peppers the same way we did before. Cut off the top and bottom, and then you're gonna core it, and then roll it out. Save this for your compost or for your trim you can use later. And trim off the top. And a julienne is basically just, you know, thin strips. Now that you have kind of the length of your peppers, you can use that as a reference for your carrots and celery. So let's do the celery first. Just going to trim this to using one of the peppers as a guide. And with celery, it's kind of the same thing. These are what I call planks. So when you julienne, you always want to get the vegetable into these little planks, and then you can just kind of thinly slice it across. And again, the reason you want them to be all the same size, the same length, is so ingredients cook evenly. And today we're not going to, usually you would boil water in order to blanch this. But today I'm going to teach you, if you don't have a microwave, I would start boiling a small pot of water. I assume most people live in apartments, and I think on the survey, I think like 90% people have microwaves. So if you don't, let me know. But this is kind of a hack that I use, and also some restaurants. There is a 3-star Michelin restaurant in New York, in particular, that actually has microwaves, and in a pinch they use it to cook fish. So tell your friends next time you pay $3.50 a person to eat a tasting menu, your fish might be cooked with a microwave. You don't do it all the time, but sometimes when they get too many orders. And I know this because I was dodging there. If you're curious which restaurant it is, you can DM me after class. But right now I'm just peeling my carrots. I left this out of the Mies post yesterday, but honestly, you don't really need to peel carrots. Just make sure you wash it. When I'm short on time, I also don't necessarily peel them. But again, with the carrots, carrots are a little trickier. But again, cut off the top and the bottom, and then use one of your existing, celery sticks or green pepper sticks to measure. And then with something round, what you always want to do is to get one side flat. And this is going to irk some people, but that is considered trim. So put in your sock bag. And then you're just going to do this on 3 sides, right? You're essentially going to make an almost rectangular prism. And then you're going to cut the planks with the round still, one of the sides that you haven't trimmed, on your guiding hand. And then you're just going to cut small planks.
Would you mind zooming in a little when you have...
Yeah, sorry. Yeah, so you see how like one side is rounded still, but 3 sides are kind of a right angle with each other. So you want to cut the planks this way, right? From right to left until you get to the rounded side. This is why it's a little easier to work with like very thick carrots, just because the planks are a little bit more substantial. So when you get to the end, this is also trim. So you're gonna have a lot of carrot trim for stock. But because we're aiming for precision today, we're just gonna use the ones that are perfectly cut into matchsticks. And then you can take your time here. And then when you get to the end, if they're too thick, that's also trim, but they look pretty good on my end, so I'm just going to keep them. Now you have a bunch. So with one of the fillets of fish, you don't need too much. I would just do like 1 thin carrot. I'm just going to julienne this one too. Again, with something round, if it rolls on your cutting board, that's a bad thing, especially if I do a knife. So you want to make sure that one side is flat on the table, flat on the cutting board. Make 3 sides flat. And now you have essentially a rectangular prism. And Now you do the planks again. And if you have a mandolin with a thicker carrot, you could actually make the planks with the mandolin and then just, focus on getting these matchsticks with your knife. That's usually the workflow I have. Unfortunately, I could not find any thicker carrots. Yeah, so you have a bunch. You have the 3 julienne vegetables that we're going to garnish the fish with. And we're actually going to cook them a little bit with the microwave. So you can use a plate. I'm going to use one of these to-go containers lids. And you're going to put them on the lid. And you're going to take a paper towel. It's too thick. You take a paper towel, wet it. And just kind of cover it. And you're just going to microwave it on high for like a minute. Yeah, Tiffany, let me know if I can help you clarify on anything. We just julienned all our vegetables. So the carrot, the green peppers, and the celery. I put a wet paper towel over them. You can use a plate or one of the lids for your to-go containers. And then I'm just gonna cook them a minute at a time and then take out whatever is done. And usually the carrot will be the one that takes the longest. But also this is a good trick to use when, maybe you're busy on the stove and you don't want to like boil water. This is a really good way to use your microwave. And in general, microwaves work best when you do it on low power for a longer period of time. That's how you get more even cooking. But in the interest of time, I'm just blasting it on high. And because it's, our juliennes are so thin, it's gonna, the microwaves are gonna pass right through and heat everything up. But if you have something like a burrito, you want to heat it up in the microwave, always low power for like 5 to 10 minutes, and that's going to come out a lot better. All right, so minutes up. Should be plenty hot. And you're just going to check for doneness. And it doesn't have to be super done. You almost want to replicate like a blanch. So the peppers, we'll still go for maybe 30 more seconds. Carrots are not done. So we just actually okay. So 30 more seconds. The idea is that because vegetables take a longer time to cook than fish, by the time that we put the vegetables into our parchment bag with the fish, they're going to come to, they're going to arrive at the correct doneness at the same time. And that's something you want to always think about is like all the ingredients in my dish, what are the times required for you to like properly cook it? If we cook everything, if we put all the vegetables inside the parchment bag with the fish, the carrots, I guarantee you, are not going to be done because the parchment's going to only be in the oven for like maybe 7 minutes at most. So now, starter's pretty good. I like my vegetables with a little bit more crunch. This is like a pretty classically French dish we're making, and they like all their vegetables to taste like mush. So if you're done this, taste it. Here's the carrots.
Hey, Jonathan. Sorry,
Yeah.
John. That's a random question. Are we allowed to put the pepper seeds into the scrap container for future?
Yeah, you can.
Okay, cool.
You can, but I usually just discard the core. I put the core inside my worm bin.
Oh, okay.
You can't really do much with that. But the tops and the bottoms, definitely save it. You can put it in kind of sofrito or just in your eggs or something, you know? Like you could totally dice up the top. Totally edible. Yeah, so my vegetables are done. The carrots could maybe go for 30 more seconds, so I'm gonna take out. I'm just going to take out, careful, might be hot. And this is how you would, you know, if you have a sheet pan of ingredients, and generally if you want to just save on time, this is how you would do it, even in the oven, is like, check on each ingredient. You know, if you're putting broccoli with potatoes, obviously the broccoli is going to get finished sooner than the potatoes. So check on them, take the broccoli out, but don't like mix everything together because some things are going to get finished cooking before the other. I'm just going to put the carrots back for another 30. I'll put it in for a minute. The carrots are still kind of crunchy. So in the meantime, this is done. We're gonna garnish the fish with this. You want to preheat your oven to 450. So do that now because it'll probably take a while. It'll take at least 10 minutes, I think. That's what I'm gonna do. And you want to take out your fish now. I'm going to do my short spiel on seafood right now. So with seafood, this is the way that most, you know, reputable restaurants store it. When you have fish or any kind of seafood, mussels, you know, scallops, you want to make sure it's on ice and as much surrounded by ice as possible. And with fish, I actually like to put it upright, because when you lay fish on one side, it kind of ruins the integrity of the fish. Of course, this is if you're storing fish for like days at a time. My recommendation for most people is like, if you want seafood, if you want to cook seafood at home, buy the seafood the day of and just do it. It just makes it so that you don't have to come up with some contraption to store it properly. But this container I have is perforated on the bottom. So as the ice melts, all the water goes into the bottom container. So you can see this is perforated. And the reason why is because you don't want your seafood to sit in water, right? That's how a lot of bacteria breeds. It's gonna ruin the integrity of your product. So with seafood especially, you wanna make sure you're working on ice. If you don't have ice, just make sure as you're, you know, filleting the fish, or, you know, fabricating it, you want to, as quickly as possible, put it back in the fridge. Seafood goes back a lot. Seafood does a lot worse job at room temperature than like most proteins, like even chicken or beef. So with the fish, ideally you have it descaled and gutted. Most fish butcheries, if you go to the supermarket, most fish butchers will do that for you. So let me know if that's not the case, because with scales, you need like a special tool to do it. And then it should be cleaned. The guts should be gone. So now you have this clean kind of fish to work with. And what you want to do is to have your knife. If you have chicken or kitchen shears, you want to make sure that's available. Zoom out a little bit. Put this away. I have pliers here for the pin bones, you could totally use your hand. Most of the time I just use my fingers, but if they're any particularly hard to get out of, that's what I'll use. And you could totally use your chef's knife, but today I'm going to show you why you would want to get a fillet knife if you, decide to fillet your fish at home more often than not, because this thing bends, and because fish is so delicate, you want to be able to basically carve along the carcass, and it helps if your blade is flexible. So you could see it kind of bend, which your chef's knife ideally should. So you want to make sure you have a paper towel. Always keep your blade dry when you're butchering a fish. And put some gloves on. And most people aren't going to butcher fish. I think it's probably one of the most cumbersome tasks to do in the kitchen, and do it well. It's usually like the kind of the end station in the restaurants. Like whoever cooks and butchers the fish is usually the most senior line cook, just because like seafood's really expensive and it's really delicate, so it requires some amount of skill. But if you can fillet a fish, you can do anything else in the kitchen. Is my take. So what you want to do is first make sure all the fins are cut off. If you don't have, if it still has the top fins, you want to make sure that's use your chicken. I keep saying chicken. Kitchen shears to snip those off. And then with anything that the fish produces as a byproduct, so the carcass, the fins, you could save that for stock. Fish stock is extremely good, and it's one of the reasons I fillet my own fish, is so I kind of want the carcass that it comes in. But most of the time when I cook whole fish, when I cook fish, I cook it whole, just because it's easier, and it's, with the bones on, the meat actually stays a little bit more tender. But today we're just gonna kind of dress it up a little by filleting it. So you want to, first thing, cut off the fins. There's still some left here, so I'm just gonna cut it off. And I have a container here on ice that I put the trim on. And you want to make sure you, the first thing you do is you make a snippet at the end, right here, just to mark where the end of that fillet is, and you do it on both sides. Simple enough. And then you want to cut the head off. So usually there's kind of where the gills are. You want to make an incision here, and you just want to cut through it. And then the other side. Those fins off. And save the head. The head is extremely good for stock. Now the head's off, and you have this. So with a lean fish like this, you want to work basically now perpendicular, and you want to feel where that middle spine is, and just kind of use your blade to follow along that spine. You want to make that top incision. And the key thing is here to follow along the spine as closely as possible in as few strokes as possible. Otherwise you're going to end up with like a fillet that's like really choppy, which is not great. You're just going to follow the spine all the way down to that incision you made in the beginning. And every time your blade gets kind of slimy, just kind of wipe it on your towel that you have set aside here. Otherwise that is going to get all over your fish. You're just going to follow it all the way down. And now you can kind of see that it's peeling off. You can kind of clearly see the indents of the spine. And then you're just going to, don't push too hard through it. Now you're going to take your kitchen shears, and you're just going to cut as close to the carcass as possible, because you want to get as close to the carcass because there's always going to be pin bones in this part of the fish, and you want to cut as close to the spine because you want to be able to grip that fish or that bone. Now I have this like that. should see it clearly splitting. Now you're going to turn the fish the other way and then work your way, kind of go through. Definitely a little rusty. I don't usually fillet my fish too much these days.
Sorry, do you flip the fish to the other side and then do the same thing? Or you cut to the...
Sorry, Jocelyn, can you speak up?
So sorry, you said you flip the fish to the other side and then what did you do?
We're still working on one side. So
okay.
This is the same side. So I haven't
Okay.
I haven't flipped it. I just rotated. So I started off with the back of the fish.
Okay.
I'll split that, cut off the pin bones.
I see.
And this the central skeleton should be really smooth.
Okay.
And then on the other side, you should feel like all these pin bones sticking out, which is good because you're gonna use that to take the pin bones out, and then you're gonna rotate it 180 degrees.
Okay.
And then you're just gonna kind of follow along the bottom to split it. But you kind of want to press down on this on the fillet itself. And you'll get this, you'll get your first fillet right here, like that. And you can clearly see this part that you have to cut down, right? The belly, essentially. So what you're gonna do is make sure your dominant hand, if you're cutting with your right hand, to have it to have the bones facing the left side. And then you're just gonna kind of follow the curvature of the belly and then kind of do a size. You see how this part especially, having a fillet knife that bends, that curves with the fish helps a lot. You just want to get this part out. And then you'll get this kind of belly fatty situation that you don't need, but this can go in the scrap. So now you have your fillet here. It's definitely not my best work. And now you can kind of trim it. This little white part, you could trim that. Need to sharpen this knife. And closer to the neck of the fish, you're gonna have to basically start to find the pin bones. Like they'll be sticking out if you have used your shears to cut off along the skeleton. You want to use your pliers, or you actually just use your hand. I'm using pliers because my gloves are actually not the best thing for grip. But you could totally just use your fingers to pinch them out. You could also ask your fish butcher to fillet for you. I wish it was commonplace for your butcher to get tipped, but so now I have all my pin bones out. Make sure to clean your knife. It gets kind of grimy, so having a paper towel on the side helps. And now you're just going to kind of, massage this a little bit, make sure it's trimmed nice and shapely. You're just gonna run your knife kind of parallel because you want 2 portions for this fish. And I wish my knife was sharp because this part needs to go. So you want to get 2 portions out of this. So now 2 fillets. They're ready to get steamed. And I have another container here, also on ice. Now I'm going to do the other side. Same procedure, but because, you know, this is on the other side, you're going to start with the tail first. This is like a cautionary tale to make sure your knife is sharp, because mine is not, so I'm kind of mangling it. Just gonna cut the top off of the fin here. It helps to have a knife with a sharp tip because you could just follow along the skeleton. You're going to use your shears to cut off along the neck. So sometimes you might get a fish that's not too high of a quality. So that could also be why it's like falling apart. So now I have the other fillet. And you should get sort of a kind of a carcass like this. This is amazing for stock, so save it. It's actually an easier stock to make than chicken stock. So with this side, you want to do the same thing. You want to trace the belly and just make sure it's coming off this way. Now, I want to feel for the pin bones. I actually took all the pin bones out with that belly. So I'm just gonna make sure this is in 2 pieces. Do that. Trim it. And when you put your fish together, you want to make sure that its skin is touching the skin. Usually that's the part where it's most bacteria breeds, so just want to be careful. Any questions so far? Filleting a fish is not easy. I did not do a very good job, so this is also just to master filleting a fish. It takes a lot of discipline, and I definitely did get rusty. So, but we have enough to work with. If you chose not to fillet a fish today, you chose wisely. Your oven should be at 450 now. Let me know if it doesn't. We will wait. I'm just gonna put all my trim away. And if you want to make your own fish stock, usually markets, your grocery store is going to sell fish heads. You're just going to sell fish heads for, by itself, and you can use those parts to make. It's a lot easier to find than like chicken food or anything like that. So you have your fish fillets. And we are going to make our parchment. So the carrots are done. So I'm going to put them with my peppers and my celery. And you want to take out your parchment paper. And if you have a lemon, I would cut your lemon out. If you don't, that's totally fine. This is optional. You can kind of choose to customize a little here. But basically you want at least a 12 by 15 piece of parchment paper. And I will show you two ways to do this. You could play it safe, which is what I'll do for one. And then we'll do a fancier version, which is one you should whip out if you want to impress a date or a significant other. So basically.
Oh, Jonathan, before you move to the next step, there was a question in the chat.
Yeah, so if you want to defrost your fillets, under running water. So put it in a container and just put running water through. You want it running because they'll carry they'll bring up the temp. They will bring up the protein to the temperature. So, yeah, and it should take a couple minutes.
Are we supposed to do this parchment paper step?
Sorry, you're cutting out.
Oh, if we're using a steamer, are we supposed to be following this step?
No. If you're using a steamer, you could just treat this thing as a steamer. So I'll show you my usual steamer setup, which is I'll use this insert like this. I don't actually have a bamboo steamer because it's like a single purpose device. But if you have one, definitely use it. I love having, I'll probably get one someday. But I use this insert and I just use an existing pot. And the key to steaming is that you're just cooking with water vapor, right? So as long as you have a sealed container, so you're going to put the lid on, or it just needs to be in an enclosed space. You don't have to put that much water. Actually, the more water you put in, the more energy and the more time it will take to actually convert that water into steam, right? So you only need a little bit of water. And that's kind of the principle we'll use for our parchment paper. So if you have a steamer, fill it with like a 1/4 inch of water. And then we'll plate the thing, follow the plating as we're doing it here. So with this, you could choose one of two ways. I'm gonna do thin slices of this lemon. You could either put the lemon on the bottom or the top. You could also put the veggies on the bottom or the top, depending. If you're doing it this way, you could also, if you're doing it the safe way, which is just a normal pocket, you can also just not have anything underneath the fish. But the idea here is that you want something underneath the fish so that it doesn't come in contact with your cooking surface that you're going to put it on in the oven. So for this one, I will use a bed of vegetables on the bottom. So just take a little bit of your veggies. And this is kind of like a single serving. And I would season it, obviously. A little salt, a little pepper. And you're just gonna take one of the fish fillet. Actually, we're gonna season all these fish fillets at once. Just a general pinch of salt, generous pinch. And then you're gonna put one of them on top of the bed of vegetables. And then we're just gonna do, let's do like two slices of lemon, just to flavor it. And then I will also put on top a sprig of thyme, if you have that. Season it a little bit more. And here's the important part. If you have white wine or stock, you just want to do a splash. I would caution against doing too much here because you only need a little bit of liquid for the, for your oven to turn it into steam. If you put too much liquid in there, it'll just kind of stew, which is not the effect you want. So just a splash of wine or cooking liquid. And then for this part, we're gonna turn it kind of in portrait, and you're going to kind of fold it in half, and then you're going to crimp until you're going to crimp down, basically. So, and you're going to crimp down, and you're just going to keep rolling until you touch the fish itself. Once you get to the bottom, you should have this visible fold. And you're just going to fold the sides onto below the fish so that the weight of the fish keeps this little pocket from opening up. And now you have a parchment tote that will steam your fish. And the reason why we're steaming the fish is because fish is a really delicate protein. And to preserve the flavor, steam is really good at it because all the nutrients and the flavor is not leaching into the cooking liquid. You're just using kind of the ambient air to cook. So this is the foolproof way. This is going to steam just fine. I'm going to show you the fancier version. And you're going to take another piece of parchment. And we are going to, I'm going to put the lemon on the bottom this time. And with this method, there's always a chance of it not working. So it's really satisfying when it does. So you want to fold your parchment paper in half. And you want to pick a smaller fillet because if your parchment paper is not big enough, basically you want your fish to be here, kind of on one side. And I'll just do one piece of lemon here. And you want to take your egg wash out, so just egg white. And basically what the egg white does is it acts as a glue. So that's how you're going to crimp using the egg white, is you're going to brush on it. You don't need a pastry brush, but you could just use your finger, but this is just a little less messy way to apply it. And we're going to pick a smaller fillet like this. And basically the lemon just acts as an insulator, so it's not directly touching like your baking sheet. And then you're going to do the same thing. You're just going to put this on top. This might not pass because it's a little big, but we will see. Season it. A little salt, a little pepper. And similar to what we did before, splash of wine. not too much. I would say like err on the side of nothing than overdoing it, because there's going to be moisture coming from like your lemon, your vegetables, and you are going to take your egg white and just fold it. You're going to do the edge, going to brush the edge. Oops. I'm going to put some thyme on top. You're basically going to use this as a glue to seal the parchment. You want to work a little quickly here just because this thing is, you got the parchment a little wet. So fold it onto itself. And then you're gonna kind of crimp, basically do little folds along the edge. Making sure to do like a tight seal. Making sure you're not missing anything along the edge. If it's coming apart like this, you want to make sure it's sealed. And then you're just going to crimp it one more time. Better safe than sorry. The effect you want here is like the parchment should puff up. But even if it doesn't, like it'll still sufficiently steam the fish. It's kind of like a nice party trick. And a really good experiment to teach you how like steam works. You don't need a lot of water to see what happens. And to be honest, this might totally fail, as seams are kind of not up to my standard. But you want to do like maybe 2 to 3. If you're confident, 2 is fine. Even do 1. This is why like the foolproof way we show, you know, you're really just wrapping the whole thing by itself. Okay, so now you have this kind of like half dome thing. It looks like a calzone. And then you just want to take a little bit of the egg white and brush the top, because that's how you can tell when the parchment is done. If the parchment doesn't balloon, you can use the egg white to tell that it's done just by the color. It'll start to brown. And now you're going to take your baking sheet and just move your parchment. Yeah, you can use stock or water. Someone asked what you use to kind of give the fish a little bit more liquid so that it can steam. You can use stock or you can use wine. So just carefully transfer to your baking sheet. I'm gonna use the egg white for the easier method as well. And then make sure your oven's at 450. Just gonna pop it in. And this is the part where you kind of just cross your fingers and pray.
Hey,
You're
Jonathan.
a little behind today, but I will definitely do both of the sauces. I think that's, given this is kind of our last recipe-based lab session, we're gonna go out with a bang. So get your, you want to set your timer for maybe 5 minutes to check on your papillote, which is the French word for parchment. But yeah, you can see, I don't know if you can see. Yeah, you can see. You can see my little parchment tote is puffing up.
Hey, Jonathan.
Yeah.
So we're steaming cauliflower and we're doing it in one of these like fat Taiwanese rice cookers.
Yeah.
Should it still go in a parchment paper pouch?
No, the parchment paper is basically simulating your steaming setup.
Got it.
So can you see it? Yeah, that's a good looking pouch. So it's gonna start to, you're gonna start to see the top. If you brushed it with egg white, you're gonna start to see the top like brown a little bit. It usually takes like 5 to 7. Usually when it like really puffs up, that's when you know it's done, because the steam has like it fully expanded the pouch. I love watching this part. I don't even like do my usual like cleaning routine because it's just really fun to watch. So the thing is, this is usually made to order because as soon as you take it out of the oven, it's going to start to depressurize because it's the differential between the temperatures and also the air pressure between the interior of the parchment tote and the exterior. So you want to kind of pop it inside the oven. So you don't want to take it out immediately because it's just gonna, in like 20 seconds, it's gonna be flat. And you want to serve this table side while it's still puffed up. And then you get that really nice aroma when you like rip open the bag. So yeah, you can see it's nice and puffy. And it's just gonna keep doing its thing. All right, I can talk a little bit about the sauce we're gonna make. So if you're gonna make the Thai sauce, we're gonna do 2 methods today. If you're gonna make the Thai sauce, get your fish sauce out. You're gonna need a cup of stock. Water's fine if you really don't have stock on hand. And you will also need lime, garlic, and sugar. It's going to be it's a Thai sauce, like chili lime sauce that goes with fish, especially. I'm actually gonna go run and get my Thai chilies. And yeah, if you like Thai chilies, I would definitely use Thai chilies. So start working on that while your fish steams. So you're gonna slice your garlic thinly. You are going to juice your limes. And for the people doing beurre blanc, if you have a shallot, I would dice a shallot right now. And then I would take your butter out from the fridge. It should be cold butter. It's really hard to make an emulsion sauce with room temperature butter. So get your cold butter out. And you're gonna dice a shallot. I'm gonna show the beurre blanc first. And you wanna take your white wine vinegar, or any kind of wine vinegar really, and also white wine. But you only need a dash, you don't need a ton. So I have a little bit left here for my fish. Check on your tote. You can see mine is like really fat now. It's like almost done. Probably needs like 30 more seconds. Ideally, the timing is that, you know, you have made the sauce beforehand so that once you can serve the stateside or table side, you can just pour the sauce on top. And then for the, you know, safer pouch, you can, you know, leave in the, you can also leave this in the oven for maybe 5 minutes. Just don't, just shut off the, turn off the oven, but don't open it. So the fish is done. I'm gonna turn it off now. Hopefully it doesn't deflate, but I'm gonna turn it off and we'll make the sauce. But just on, turn it up. So you're going to gonna preheat your pan. We're gonna make the beurre blanc today. It's a very classic French sauce. You're basically going to do a shallot reduction. If you don't have shallots, it's fine. Just throw in your white wine and your vinegar. You're gonna do like half and half. And you're going to reduce this. So half wine vinegar. And you're just gonna bring this to a simmer and you're gonna reduce it by like 90%. Feel free to bring it to a boil, let that evaporate down. The tote is doing okay. And when you make the butter sauce, you want to use cold butter and you want to whisk it in 1 cube at a time, but on very low heat, because if you boil it, you're going to split the sauce. You're almost doing like a hollandaise, just without the egg yolk, which makes it a little trickier because there's no emulsifier. But the ideal flavor profile for beurre blanc should be very acidic, very tart, very rich, and it goes well with, like, you know, fatty cuts of fish. Goes well with fish in general. Goes well with asparagus. You just want to let this reduce down till maybe you get like 2-3 tablespoons. 2. Let's go with 2. You don't want too much of the wine left. And if you are doing the Thai sauce, you're just going to bring your stock to a boil, the cup of stock to a boil.
Hey, John. If we're using a steamer, how do we know when the steamer is done?
Sorry, it's really loud in my office. Can you type your question?
If we're using
Sorry
if we're using a steamer, how do we know when the steamer is done and not the oven?
Oh, you can just check, right? Because we're not using a very temperamental parchment bag, so you can just check. Use your, with fish, it's really not, use your cake tester. You know, stick it in the middle. If it's warm, it's done.
Oh, okay.
Usually people overcook fish. That would like really under the plate say. So my reduction.
When you said for the parchment, after 5 minutes, you turned off the oven?
Yeah.
Okay, cool, thanks.
Yeah, once it's fully puffed, it's done. But if you want to keep it warm, just keep it in the oven, because as soon as you open the oven, it's gonna depressurize. So what you want to do is, when you're ready to serve it, open the oven and then poke a hole on top, just so it kind of stabilizes, so that eventually it'll deflate, but then you'll get a little bit more time to actually send it to the table. So I have like a little, I reduced it a little too much. I'm gonna add a little bit more wine. You want some liquid in there. And then you're gonna lower the heat. I'm doing the beurre blanc. The Thai chili sauce is still coming to a boil. All right, that's a tablespoon of stuff in there. So once you have the reduction, you want to lower the heat. This part gets a little tricky. And you just want to whisk in butter like 1 cube at a time. Can add a little bit more to get this emulsion started. And this is like a temporary emulsion. Eventually it'll split, kind of like hollandaise. It's bound together by heat and physical agitation. But as you stir in the butter, you just start to see it like thicken. It'll turn a nice creamy, opaque color. You're gonna strain this out. The shallots is there just for to give you the aromatic. You want to do this on low heat. If you boil it, then it will split. So and for those of you doing the Thai sauce, my stock is at a boil, so lower the heat, stir in some sugar. I apologize for it. It gets really loud in here when I'm cooking, so if you have questions, please drop it in the chat. We'll drop in as much sugar as we're comfortable with in terms of sweetness. Your sauce should be like really sour and sweet and spicy, but you don't want to reduce the stock too much. Thai sauces are usually, especially with fish, Thai sauces are usually on the looser side. My beurre blanc is coming together. Yeah, the parchment is still good. Honestly, it'll stay puffed up forever in there until you open the door, and then it'll just deflate. Beurre blanc is pretty good. Add a couple, it's almost done, but it's basically a butter sauce, like flavored butter sauce. And you're just going to season it with salt, usually white pepper, but you know, normal pepper is fine. You use white pepper because you don't want the sauce to have any color. Black pepper tends to ruin that. And then I want to season with lemon at the end. It should be very acidic, very tart. And if you're making the Thai chili sauce, I would reduce it by like half a cup. It's honestly it's not a very like saucy sauce. It's more like a dressing that you kind of pour on top of your fish. Okay, so I have a good amount of sauce in here for the beurre blanc. I'm going to whisk in the lemon juice. Just gonna if it's a little loose, you could always just whisk in more butter. And at the end of finishing a sauce, when you add butter, it's called mounting. the amount of sauce, just kind of makes it so that it's thickened, it's more sauce-like. And for the Thai chili people, at this point you should put in your garlic and add in a decent amount of lime juice. Taste it. If it doesn't taste tart enough, add more lime juice. If it doesn't taste sweet enough, add more sugar. Put in your Thai chilies too. I overestimated my ability to make 2 sauces at once because I really don't want to break this beurre blanc. The Thai chili sauce is a lot more forgiving. So at this point, I'm going to season it. Lots of salt. Taste it. You can tell, you can see that it's like a white sauce and it's emulsified. There shouldn't be any kind of splitting happening. I'm going to turn the stove off. Taste it. Really tart, really good, super buttery. Use it to my lactose intolerant ears. Okay, so with the beurre blanc, I like to serve it in a teapot because it has a little strainer, so it does a 2-in-1 job for me. And the way we're going to finish this is just to take the tote out, and then, you know, you could serve this table side, you finish the sauce. I'm sure you've had restaurants where they kind of pour in the broth at table side, so that's what we're gonna do. People on the Thai chili, are you okay with me not showing that? Just because we're over time and I want to get to the actual finished dish. I'm gonna assume that's a yes. Fish sauce, no, you put everything in. You're not reducing really. Once you get the chicken stock or the stock reduced to a proper amount, you can just put in the fish sauce. I don't have a particular quantity in mind, which is why I'm not giving you one. It's just you want to make sure it's like the right amount of umami and sweetness and sourness. Take this time to clean up. Check on your tote. Mine is still pretty puffed up. And in terms of sequencing, what I would do differently is I would probably make the sauce first. Just so at the end, I'm not leaving the fish in the oven that long, but I'm choosing to let it kind of carry over cook, and it's probably overcooked by now, but I want to show you for affect how to properly, yes, yeah, you want to get a tom yum consistency. That's exactly it. I mean, that's the thing about kind of chasing your preferences, is that you'll start to see patterns. I'm not a Thai cuisine expert, so I can't tell you how to season it. But with, I'm going to show you how I would take the parchment out. I would take a paring knife, and I would be careful with your hands, but I would reach in and poke a hole on top of the parchment. And I would get my, let me go grab a plate. So you're gonna reach in with your paring knife and then poke a hole on top just to let it kind of depressurize. Careful. God, this thing's hot. Okay, so I poked a hole on top. Because as soon as you open the oven, it's going to, the pressure is going to want to equalize. So you have your tote, you have your plate, you would serve this table side, and you're going to help, you know, if you're the server, you're going to have your sauce ready, and you're going to kind of open up the tote. And a ton of steam is going to come out. It's going to smell amazing. And you have your sauce ready. Just going to pour it on top. There is your croissant and papillote. Sorry for running over time today. I really overestimated my multitasking ability, but here you go. Let me know if you have any questions. Let me know how your tote came out. They keep calling it a tote, but I don't actually know if it's a tote. But if there's a better term for it, I would love to know. And let's see how our other one came out. See, this is why it's safe, because you know you've cooked it right, but there's no really affectation to it. And then you would just dress it with the beurre blanc or your chili sauce. And voila. How's everyone doing?
Good, we're just plating now.
Awesome. Honestly, I understand. I would love to have extended these session times, but that's definitely something to keep in mind for the next run. So a little bit about sort of next week. I will send out an announcement later today, sort of detailing what the capstone project is. That's going to be our main focus for kind of week 4, which is our last week together. The theme is going to be actualization. So a lot of things you guys have been asking me, like, you know, what stuff to Mies and what not to Mies, and, you know, stuff to get in grocery stores. That stuff I will cover on Sunday. And on Sunday, it will be also our last recipe together. I'm going to send that Mies post out later today too, but we're going to braise something. And Sunday braise is always is one of my favorite kind of like culinary rituals, because it's something to kind of welcome the week with, and also we'll feed you for like 3-4 meals, easy. And it's a combination of like a hybrid technique that involves dry cooking and wet cooking, and kind of ties up a lot of our kind of fundamentals track together. And for the capstone project, if you didn't hear about it last Sunday, it's just going to be a dish of your choice that you've always wanted to make but never had the courage or time to do it. I'm also going to be doing a project alongside with you, so that'll probably be what I'm showing on Tuesday, or if you guys want me to demo something that I haven't covered yet, I'm happy to do that. Next week is really dictated by what you want to see from me. And I'll also be, outside of class, I'll also be attempting the beef Wellington that I talked about in my intro post. But the idea here is to basically give you the time and permission to like just try it, right? It doesn't have to be perfect. This course is really about giving you an excuse to try and see things that you otherwise wouldn't have seen, and to show you like cooking's not that difficult. Like anyone can do it. So that's my spiel. I'm very excited to see how it turned out. Hopefully some of yours popped up. But it's one of those things that you can make time and time and again. You can switch up ingredients, you can switch up the sauces, and it'll taste different, but the presentation is always going to be kind of, high risk, high reward. So hopefully you enjoy that. Yeah, so that's it for today. I will see you on Sunday and on Circle.